Hello, welcome to how to draw the key plate using AutoCAD 2021. This particular video will be aimed at students in my CAD technology class, and so off we go. Our goal today is to replicate this key plate. In the process, we will go through some tools and commands to hopefully teach you AutoCAD at the same time as completing a drawing where it looks like we have a rectangular object with some circles, with some measurements between those centers of those circles. We have a radius dimension given to us here over on the right-hand side, telling me that the center of this radius on the outside corner is 1 inch from the center of this small circle. It also looks like the radius has a concentric circle, or is concentric with that small circle, and therefore we're going to add an inch to the length of the overall object, which will make us 6, and we have another 1 inch radius over here. So that's a total 7 inches long, and we also have this 2.5 inch dimension, which we add an inch, 2 inches to, so we have a 7 by 4.5 inch rectangle that I'll be starting with. When you open up AutoCAD, it should look something like this. You may actually see this start page. What I have done is I've opened up our template file and done a save as and created this key plate drawing, which is what I'll be drawing in here. Again, the benefit of using one of our template files is there's a number of settings in the background that have been predetermined for you. If you were to download this software at home, unless you use a template file, you're going to be using a default file which has much less in it. For instance, all these different layers, again, these layers will kind of replicate different line types that we might need for our drawings. We also have, besides this model space, which is generally this black background, we have an A size tab, which is an 8.5 by 11 drawing, and we have a B size tab, which is an 11 by 17. Again, this is a mechanical template file, so the default setting will be for inches whenever we type in either a decimal or fractional number. So to get started, we're going to use the object line for most visible object lines. From time to time, I may use construction lines, and we're going to get started by drawing lines for our rectangle. Now, there are some additional settings or features in AutoCAD that you might be interested in turning on. One of them is down here with the F8 key called Ortho mode, and I'm going to turn Ortho mode on. What Ortho does is limits me to perfectly horizontal and perfectly vertical. Not usually a problem, but an F8 key or a left click with your mouse will turn ortho on or off. I'm also going to move the command prompt up to the top, turn ortho back on, and the other one that I generally like to have on is object snap. And object snap has some settings that if we right click on that tab, we can open up. And the one that I'm going to want to turn on that's not currently checked is midpoint. I generally find midpoints are quite useful. You can certainly access this at any point in time and turn these on or off along with a number of other settings. But I'm going to turn on the midpoint setting because you'll see in the near future it does provide us with some ability to find the centers of things pretty quickly, at least lines. All right. So I'm sorry, back to drawing our lines, and I'm going to just start somewhere in the middle of our screen. And here is ortho, and if I turn ortho off with the F8 key, you'll see that I have any number of degrees of 360 around a circle, whereas if I limit it with ortho, we are kind of stuck with horizontal and vertical lines. So I believe my memory is working correct. We have a 7-inch line horizontal. And what I'm doing here is I'm just placing the cursor in the direction that I want the line to go, and then I'm typing in the distance, in this case 4.5 up. I'm going to go 7 over, and then I want to kind of highlight the object snap. You see these green shapes that show up. The triangles are midpoints, the squares are endpoints. We may see other things show up depending upon the object snap or O snap that becomes available. And in this case, I'm just going to left click to close that rectangle, and then I'm going to hit escape to cancel the line command. And I now have the beginnings of a rectangular shape. Periodically, almost after every major change I make or addition I make, I'm going to hit Control S on my keyboard, and that, as you see up here in the command line, is a quick save. So once you have a location and a file name, you can do Control S on your keyboard very quickly. You can also come over here and hit the save option as well. That's almost as quick as well. So kind of whichever one suits your fancy. So let's go back and take a look at our example again. And now we have a rectangle. And I think the next thing I'd like to do is add the radius, okay? So the radius here is going to do a couple things for us. First off, it's a detail for our corners. They're not rectangular. Second of all, that radius, that filleted radius, and that's a detail or a technique we'll use here at the software, we will be able to identify the center of this fillet, and that will allow us to also place the circles. So I'm going to put the filleted edges in. So in order to do that, I'm going to come up to the top left of our screen, and I'm going to find fillet. And I'm going to left click on it. And again, this browser here, this command line, which is kind of important. Usually docked down here. I tend to like to move it up because it's a little bit easier to see, especially during classroom demonstrations. But when I go into the fillet command, or any command for that matter, there may be multiple options. And you can see them here highlighted in these gray rectangles. I can either click on any of those to make them active as far as an option, or I can type in to the command window. In this case, I want to specify the radius of my fillet. So I'm going to type in R and hit enter. And you can see here the default setting for my radius is 0. A 0 inch radius is a square corner. That can be used elsewhere to help us with our drawing. But right now, I want to set my radius to 1. So again, it's telling me in my command prompts, specify the fillet radius. Well, I want this one to be 1. Now that now that the software knows I have a radius selected, all I need to do is come down to a line, left click on it with my mouse button, and you can see here in the preview, it is automatically putting a radius at the correct location and trimming the lines appropriately so we have a great, nice rounded corner. If I wanted to continue with that same that same command, all I have to do is hit enter, and AutoCAD will remember the last command and it will enter you back into it, and in this case, even saves the radius. So again, I need to do this on all 4 corners. So enter, 1 left click, 2 left clicks, enter, 1 left click, 2 left clicks. All right, Control S and a save. Now, I haven't mentioned it up until now, but we do have the ability with our mouse, hopefully, trackpad commands are a little bit different, but with our mouse, we should have the ability to scroll up and down with our mouse button, and that will be for zooming in and out. If I double click on the scroll button, it does kind of like an automatic center and zoom. Right click on the mouse, and I will have a number of options available to me depending upon what I am doing at the time. I can also press and hold the scroll wheel on your mouse, and that is pan. Okay, and almost all of these commands can be accessed in the command prompt by typing in a command name like zoom, and then I have different options of what I can do with something like zoom or pan, and I can access those with keyboard inputs. All right, so now that I've got the filleted corners, I think now I would like to add the big circle in the middle. That has a 3-inch diameter, and it would also appear that it is in the center of the object from top to bottom and left to right. Okay, so what does that mean for me? Well, I am going to use a technique that I prefer. Again, you can certainly do your own thing, but I'm going to change my layer. Okay, first off, anything that I draw, I can put on a different layer simply by selecting it and changing its layer property. And that is in this drop-down. Try not to get in the habit to come over to here where it says by layer and change things. That's usually a bad technique, and it can get you into trouble. So right now, I'm going to put that line back on the object layer, and I'm going to select a construction layer. All the layers that have been created or any additional layers that you might like to create for your own is accessible through these layers properties. And we can see that there is a whole bunch that I can control with each layer. And specifically, the construction layer, which you can see is currently active because it has a green check mark, also seems to have a no print option. Okay, so as much as I want to draw it, it will not print, and I can leave it on the screen. So again, a lot of different little settings that are in here that you might not be concerned with quite yet, but do make a big difference in the overall product. So with that construction line, I have a couple of options. I need to find the center of this rectangle. So it is relatively common practice, if I still had my square corners, that I could go crosswise from corner to corner, or in this case, fillet center to fillet center. Okay. And the intersection point here would be the middle of this object. Another technique, and I'm just typing in some keyboard commands here, I'm going to use the line command. I also, if I have midpoint turned on, look at that midpoint probably, and let me delete these real quick. If I look to draw a line at the middle of that line I just drew, I betcha that's exact same location as those two cross lines. So a number of different ways to draw things. I also could come in here and do a center in this manner. So there are many different ways to find things geometrically or measure, and I will try to show you them as we make our way through the video. But now that I've found the center, I want to draw my circle. So because I'm going to be drawing something that I want to be visible, I'm going to try to remember to go back to my object line. I can certainly change it later. And I'm going to get the circle command. So I'm going to come down with my circle command, and I want to start the center of my circle at this intersection point. Okay, so I'm going to start my circle, and now I could drag this out and just left click to place. I could certainly type in a distance, or I probably need to know how the command works. And you can see that the default setting for a circle is to give it a radius. And we have a 3-inch diameter. So I could either do the mental math, which in this case would be pretty easy. It's 1.5 inch radius. Or maybe I just want to tell the computer the diameter. So I can, again, either type in D or just select this here. And now the computer will realize that I want to tell it a diameter. And then I can type in my distance to be accurate. And now I have a 3-inch diameter circle. Control S. All right, next feature. Well, it looks like, I got circles that I could draw in. Or I can work on the details around the big circle in the middle. I think I'm going to draw in these 4 circles here. I'm going to do that because it sure does look like there's a half circle down here that is vertically aligned with the centers of the circles on the outside edge. It also looks like those half circles are horizontally aligned with the center of the large circle in the middle. So if I want to try to draw in these kind of rounded corner little slots off the center circle, I could probably stand to figure out this intersection point. So with that in mind, let's go back into AutoCAD, and I am going to start with a circle. And again, we have Object Snap Center turned on. And remember, we talked about that fillet being concentric with the fillet. So again, the center of our small circles are concentric with the fillet. I probably should refresh my memory. We are using 3/4 inch D diameter. Drill is diameter. We have 3/4 inch diameter circles. So I'm going to start my circle right here. I'm going to type in D and hit enter so I can tell the computer I want a 3/4. Again, I can type in a decimal or a fractional equivalent. AutoCAD will automatically calculate the fractional equivalent for you. And there is my initial circle. Now, I could certainly go and draw another circle at all 4 corners, or I want to talk about another command we can use called copy. Okay, copy sounds just like it sounds. We're going to copy something and we're going to use it again. So since I've already done the work here on the circle, I'm going to use the copy command. And again, I need to pay attention to my project browser. What objects do you want to copy? Well, I want to copy this circle. So I'm going to select that with the left click, and you'll notice I have what they call a pick box that I use for selection. Once I'm done selecting that, I'm going to right click or hit enter on the keyboard. And now it says, well, where do you want to copy it from? Well, I like the idea of copying it from the center. So I'm going to left click there. And now you'll see it's attached to my cursor in the center. And what that allows me to do is go and place the center of the circle exactly where I might like it to be, since I have that circle by its center. Okay. Now that I have these circles shown here, I am going to get a construction line, and I'm going to draw a construction line between these 2 circles on each end, creating an intersection point that I'm going to use to place another circle. So let's go find out what size circle that is. We have a half circle here, and it would appear that the overall width of this slot is 3/4 of an inch, which is also the same as the diameter of the other circles. So I want to place another 3/4 inch diameter circle at those intersection points that I previously figured out. And again, I can do that a number of different ways. I'm going to be, I don't want to say lazy, I want to say smart, and I'm going to utilize geometry that I've already created. All right, and I'm going to delete these 2 lines on the end now because I don't believe that I need them, which I could certainly leave them there. Some people find lots of lines confusing. I generally find that having them different colors helps me understand what is important and what maybe hasn't been determined yet. Now, if I look at my example, we can again see that it looks like there's a horizontal line. That line looks like it might be parallel up here, and it looks like it would continue all the way over. So those of us in the know with some geometry background, a line that touches a circle at one point on its outside circumference is called a tangent line. And it looks to me like I could probably draw a line tangent to this circle and tangent to this circle, and I can get 2 horizontal lines if I wanted to do that. Another method might be if I have this center line, right, and I know that I have a 3/4 inch opening, half of 3/4 is 3/8, so maybe I can do something with the center line that I already have and utilize that. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways to get the same effect. So the first one is using object snap and tangency. Okay, remember we went down here before and turned on our object snap, and we had this tangent point option. Again, something I'm familiar with, having done this for a while. I can type in TAN here and hit enter, and that will actually take me into a tangent object snap. Okay, so I'm overriding other object snaps, and I'm telling the computer, hey, make this line tangent, or this endpoint of a line tangent. So I'm going to left click there. You can see I'm on the wrong layer right now, but I'll change that a little bit. And then I want to make this tangent over here as well. So I'm going to type in TAN, enter, and do the same thing on that circle. And I'm going to now change the color of that layer as well. Okay, so that's one way. Another way is to utilize this existing line because it looked like it was going to be touching the outside of the circle 3/8 of an inch from where it currently sits. So in order to do that, there is an absolutely amazing command. I use it all the time, along with fillet. I use those a lot, aside from lines and circles, is the offset command. And what this allows you to do is to take an existing line, in most cases, but it'll do circles and other things, and move it a set distance away from an existing line. So it works something like this. We're going to select that offset command, and you'll see the command says specify the offset distance. Oh, this one I want to do 3/8. Oop, 3/8. So I'm going to type in 3/8 and I'm going to hit enter. It now says what object do you want to offset? And I'm going to select this middle line. Okay. And when I'm done selecting, I can right click or hit enter, but usually once you're done selecting it, it now automatically goes into this offset. And you can see here, gosh, it looks like it's right on top of that line that I drew tangent to those circles. And if I move my cursor above or below the existing line, I have the option to change which direction I am offsetting this line to. And in this case, I want to offset it down. So I'm going to left click to place that line, and then I'm going to hit escape. And now I have a line down here, this white one, and I'm going to change its layer to object line. And it looks like I need to do some trimming. Okay, there's lines here. This is starting to look confusing, and it's not really looking like the example here. So it looks like there's some things I need to trim. So let's talk about the trim command, okay? A lot of different ways to use the trim command. The one that I like to use the most is the one where you go into the command trim and you hit enter one time. And what that does is it effectively goes into this cutting edges mode where everything is effectively trimmable. Okay, so you can see here, I know I don't need that section of that circle or that. I know I don't need that line. I know I don't need those pieces there, or those pieces there, or those pieces there, and so on until I get the look of the object that I'm after. Okay, Control S. And so very quickly, using some tools, we can get geometry in place, some of it for construction, some of it for actual use, and I can start to develop the way an object looks, okay, or what I'm trying to replicate, or what I'm designing. Last but not least, we have these two notches, and these notches look to be 3/4 of an inch wide, okay, and 3/8 of an inch deep, and specifically 3/8 of an inch from where these outside lines intersect with the circle. Well, we've already done a 3/4 inch notch over here. We know half of 3/4 is 3/8, and it looks like this little notch here is symmetrical from this mid line or center line here. So maybe, since I already have that white line left, maybe I can use that same technique that I used down here again, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the offset command, and it's still set to 3/8, and I'm going to hit enter because I didn't have to change the distance. I'm going to select that line, and I'm going to put one on one side and one on the other. So very quickly, what have I just found? I found the intersection point of a line that is 3/8 of an inch away from the center where it intersects the circle. And that's very valuable because now I'm going to draw a line to connect to those two. Why did I do that? Well, again, if we look at this example, the intersection point from one end to the other is 3/4 of an inch wide, which I just created. I now need to know the height, 3/8 of an inch from where that vertical line intersected that circle. So that's what I'm going to do next. And I have this horizontal line, and I do want a horizontal line up at the top here. So again, I'm going to use the offset command. 3/8 of an inch is still my option. And I right-clicked here, and I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to come down here and select this line and send it up 3/8 of an inch. and that should be the line that I need. Okay, so let's do a little cleaning up here because we've got geometry up at the top, but we don't have it at the bottom. I'll show you another command that's quite useful. I'm going to do trim again. So enter once, and every little intersection becomes a trimmable detail. And that's effectively what I want to see. So I will change the layer that it is on. And now I have that top detail. But I don't have it down at the bottom yet. I'm actually going to get rid of those lines now because we're pretty much done with them for now. So now, oh, you know what? I got ahead of myself. I didn't want to do that. I want to leave the middle line. I don't have to, but I'll show you. Maybe I'll make the concept a little clearer. Okay, so this object, it has symmetry, both vertical and horizontal symmetry. And what's nice about that is if I do some work on half of the object, I can use the computer to do the other half or share information between sides. So I'm going to go to the mirror command, and I am going to say the software wants me to select the objects to mirror, and I want to, I'm going to left click once for a blue selection window. On a blue selection window, okay, which I get from left clicking once, letting go, and dragging to the right, I have to completely enclose an item that I'm looking to select. If I go to the left, I get a crossing selection window, and anything that I touch or is inside of that will be selected. But right now I just want these 3 lines. Okay, so I've selected items, and software tells me I found 3, and I'm going to right click, tell it done that I am selecting them. It now wants to know where my mirror line is. Now I left this white line in here to illustrate the mirror line, but I could certainly have used the midpoint here or the midpoint here to identify the midpoint. But I'm going to go from white line endpoint. Okay, and you can see right here, and now it says, hey, where's the second point? So again, I'm going to select the other point of the line, and now you can see that there is an example down below. The only thing I have left to do is decide to erase the source object, so the original one. Should I keep it or get rid of it? If you want to keep it, say no. If you want to get rid of it, say yes. All right, and so now I shared information from below up, or information above down below. Only other thing I have to do is use the trim command and clean out that detail and do a save, and the geometry for this object is complete. This is where I'll be stopping this video. The next video will be on adding center lines and dimensions and prepping our sheet to print. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.